Sam, when you said you wanted to be brought for a day at the seaside, I didn't quite have this in mind, you know. I had something else in mind.
Why do you not like it here?
It's a bit noisy, isn't it? And it's not my sort of scene. I was thinking of somewhere else that's quiet, with the birds singing and, oh, wonderful. Tell you what, let me take you there. We'll come back, then we'll go on the fair and have some fish and chips.
Yeah.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Come on. Now, Sam, guess what we are standing on?
Soil.
Not quite. This is a giant sand dune.
What are sand dunes?
Well, sand dunes are formed by the wind blowing the sand from the beach inwards towards dry land. And over most probably hundreds of years, what's happened is it slowly turns from sand to grassland to woodland. But of course, we're not here to look at this, although this is very interesting. What we're here for is to see what's at the sea. Are you up for that?
Yeah, I love the sea.
Come on. Wait for me. Ooh, let's have a sit down. Oh, we finally made it to the beach. Now, if you look in front of us, this is what you call the strand line, or the high tide mark. And this is where all the debris is brought up. And we're going to have a look along this in a bit to see what we can find. It's a bit like being a detective in a way, and I'll show you some of the wonderful things. But as you look across here, it looks lifeless, don't it? Can't see anything, can you? But if somehow you could move all the sand and just leave the animals there, you'd see thousands and thousands of shelled creatures under the sand. And of course, when the sun's out like this and it's windy and there's lots of predators about, like birds or that, they're safe deep in the sand. And there's loads and loads of them down there now. Most of them are called mollusks, okay? And these are down deep in the sand, okay? And what they do is to breathe, they put a tube up to breathe. And then when the tide comes in, they'll put another tube up. And what they do is feed off all the water that's coming in. And what they do is siphon it through the body and take out all the organic and animal matter. Wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah.
But when we go across here, with a bit of luck, we should find a few of those dead ones, sadly, because the winter storms tend to blow them up. Oh, there's all sorts of things to discover. Come on, this is exciting stuff, this is. Come on. Oh, hang on, Sam, we've got a little estuary to walk over here. Where's your wellies?
You didn't tell me to bring them, and your waves look like clown feet.
Oh, charming. But look who's laughing now. Get your socks and shoes off. Come on, sit down there. Hope you've washed your feet. Mind you, by the time we've been across there, they'll need washing. Don't tell your mother. Right, come on then. Your socks and shoes.
3, 2, 1, go! I'm doing it. And do. That feels so nice.
I bet it's cold. That'll teach you not to bring your wellies. You see, when you get an old man, you get a wise man. Oh, I think I've got a leak in my wellies. Ooh.
See, that's where it should use feet.
Sea's out there somewhere, miles away, but we're going to walk along the strand line and see all the creatures that's been washed in by the sea, you know, overnight. But we've got to be careful. In about an hour's time, the tide will be coming in and it could cut us off.
Why does the tide come in and out?
It's very complicated, but I shall try and make it as simple as I can. It's all about gravitation. Things are big objects gravitate to each other. So if you can, this is the best way to do it. So if you can imagine that is the Earth, okay, and where's the moon? Oh, no, that's too big. There's the moon. That's the moon there, and of course that's going. And what it is, as the moon comes by, okay, gravitation pulls, and we'll say that there. That's the sea, and gravitation pulls the sea out. And as it's pulling the sea out towards the moon, the actual Earth itself is being pulled as well. So that leaves that side, the sea, of course, where it started from. So you end up with a tide that's right out, and on the other side, it's right in of the world. And it gets ever so complicated because the moon goes around the sun and all. But that's roughly the principle. All right?
Yeah.
Oh, and the other reason, see all them waves out there?
Yeah.
Do you know what causes them?
No.
It's simple, wind. And the wind, as it blows, it might blow for hundreds of miles, and that's what's pushing the waves across here. And the other thing is, if you go in the sea, it's very salty, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's because millions and millions and millions of years, minerals and salt has been leaching off the land into the rivers, and the rivers then go into the sea and take all the salt and the minerals in, and then this lovely sun draws up all the water to form clouds, but it leaves the salt and the minerals behind. So over their millions of years, that's become very, very salty. So keep your mouth shut if we're going swimming. Come on, let's go walk along here. I suppose I've got to bring your shoes again, have I? Come on. Sam, come and have a look at some of the stuff I've got. Oh, you've got a lot as well. Oh, blimey, you've got a heck of a lot as well. Let's have a look at what you've got. What's that?
That's the cuttlefish bone. I can't say it.
Yeah, so a cuttlefish bone, and that's in a cuttlefish, right? That swims along, and that helps it to float. Been told they're pretty good for budgies. I don't know. Do you know anybody with a budgie? No, right. Oh, and look at that. Wow. Now, you found that?
Yeah.
Now, that is a common sea urchin, and I've got a lot of those there as well. And again, these graze on the bottom of the sea floor, and they've got like little suckers for feet, and they're so good they can actually climb up rocks and all sorts of things. That is a beauty there. Of course, another type of urchin I've got is this. This is the seed potato or the heart urchin, and these are lovely. Look at that, and they're magnificent. And that's covered in these hairs, and those hairs help it to bear it, and they'll go down deep into the sand about 8 inches because they don't want things like gulls and other predators to dig them up. And they slowly move along in the sand. They've got a long foot that take right to the 8 inches to the top of the sand that they breathe. And of course what they're doing is sifting, you know, all the material in the sand and digesting it. And all the business comes out this end, and of course that goes into the tunnel that it's made. Marvellous. Now look at these. Look at these. Now these are mermaids' purses.
Can you get money out of them?
You can get sand out of them, but not money. And these are skates or dogfish, and what they do, they lay their eggs in there, and sort of an embryo, and they're then attached to you know, vegetation in the sea, and of course they'll come out of there and away they go, and of course these are just left and swept away in the sea there. And this is an egg case as well. It looks like polythene, don't it? Bubble wrap, that's a good one. Now they belong to the dog whelp, which is that. So the eggs will turn into that eventually, and these are gastropods, as opposed to the other type of shells, which I'll explain to you in a minute. And sometimes when you've got an empty one like that, you'll get a hermit crab will live in them. Yeah, on its. I'm talking about crabs. I love crabs. Now crabs, these are some of the crabs. Right, now these are the shells. You find tons and tons of the shells on there, and the reason why, if you're a crab and you've got all this armour plated, the trouble is you keep growing and growing, but the armour plate doesn't grow. So what they have to do is shed them, and what they do, they pump water into the body and expand it and split it, and it's a bit like crawling out of a motor car in a way. And they've all got a soft shell, and they have to go to somewhere to hide while this shell hardens off. And do you know the other fascinating thing about this is, by the way, the shore crab. It's called the shore crab. You can tell the shore crab, it's got all these points on there. Look, can you see all the points on there? So this has been cast. Okay, it's going to a bigger one, but they can even break off a leg if they want. Did you know that? Because I mean, they're preyed upon by all sorts of things. So if somebody grabs it by the leg like a seagull, it can break one off, and then next time, of course, it grows a new skeleton, it'll grow a new leg. Marvellous when you think about it. Look at these. I mean, these fascinating. These are old shells, and they've got barnacles on them. I mean, this poor old devil, and this one, look. So these poor old crabs must have gone around with all this lot. Look, it's virtually over its eyes. But anyway, look, the difference with shells, you've got gastropods, right? These are gastropods, which is a single shell, all right? And then you have what we call mollusks. And mollusks are a double shell. They're basically a mirror image, like that. You can see a mirror image, whereas these are a mirror image, all right? Beautiful. And these are deep down in the sand, these are. And these are called razor shells. They call them razor shells after the old-fashioned cutthroat razor that your great-granddad might have used out of shaving, you know. Right, now then, I tell you what, before we go, the thing I haven't found on the beach, and I've got to find some, is seaweed. I know it sounds daft, but my gran always insisted I took some seaweed home. Yeah, exactly, you're going to say why. Because she used to hang it outside, and if it was sort of damp, that means it's going to rain, and if it was dry and brittle, it's going to be a fine day, because, you know, it absorbs moisture. And have you ever, if we find some seaweed, you can pop it. Have you ever done that? You ever pop seaweed?
No.
Oh, well, the idea of that is it's got these air bubbles in it, and when the tide comes in and it's under the sea, it makes it float higher so it can see the sunlight. So shall we see if we can find some, take some to your gran, some good old-fashioned seaweed? Come on then. view. I tell you what, Sam, this is far better than being up the road where all that racket is, isn't it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed myself, but what upsets me is that.
Litter, plastic. We've found it all over the beach, haven't we? It's in the sea, it's everywhere. What do we do about it? I think what we've got to try and do is rely on your generation to try and stop it, because that could be there for 1,000 years. It's worrying, isn't it? Tell you what's not worrying though, bag of fish and chips. Come on.